Have you ever stood in front of someone you love, with 1,000 thoughts in your mind, but not a single word would come out? Now, imagine this. What if, in that exact moment, your words were alive, waiting inside you, begging for permission to be born? This isn't just about language. This is about the very moment before anything is said, the breath before the sentence, the pause before the truth. Today, we're going inside that invisible world, a world where words have voices, feelings, and fears. But stay with me till the end, because by the time this story finishes, you'll never look at your own silence the same way again. Meet George. He's 28, a graphic designer by day, a dreamer by night. And for the past 3 years, he's been secretly in love with his best friend, Emma. They've shared everything: coffee spills, 2 a.m., breakdowns, stupid memes, and quiet sunsets. But George has never said the 3 words. Not because he didn't feel them, but because he didn't know how to give them life. You see, inside him, the words "I love you" weren't just phrases. They were living beings. 3 fragile souls, scared, waiting at the edge of his throat like passengers at an airport, holding their breath, waiting for the gate to open. But every time he tried, his mind would fill with what ifs. What if I lose her? What if she walks away? What if I ruin everything? And so he'd swallow them, over and over. And those words, those human words, started to break. Not because they were weak, but because they were never allowed to be heard. What George didn't know was that Emma was also hiding 3 words of her own. Different words, but just as alive, just as scared. And she too was waiting for his words to make the first move. But here's where it gets deeper. Ever wonder what happens to words that are never spoken? Do they disappear? Do they die? No, they haunt us. They live in the silent glances. They echo in the spaces between laughter and loneliness. They become the regrets we carry into old age. Words don't just exist when we say them. They begin long before that. They're born in the heart, raised in the mind, and only find peace when they are set free through our voice. But the scariest part, the space between thought and speech, is where most words die. Not because we don't care, but because we're afraid. Afraid of vulnerability, afraid of rejection, afraid that our voice isn't enough. But what if we saw words, not as tools, but as people? What if "I'm sorry" was a little boy tugging at your sleeve? What if "I miss you" was a girl with tears in her eyes, waiting at your door? What if your silence was actually a crowded room of voices screaming to be heard? 3 years later, at Emma's wedding, not to her, but to himself, in the back row, "I loved you," 3 words. But by then, there were ghosts. Words are not just sounds. They are lives. They are choices. They are the difference between connection and eternal silence. So the next time your heart is full and your lips are trembling with hesitation, ask yourself, what if my words are alive, waiting to be born? And if they could speak to you, would they say, "Let me out"? Because the saddest story is not the one we tell, it's the one we never do.